The feels in this week's chapter. The feels. Some deep shit. So this week's chapter definitely focused a lot on character development for Sheba and giving us even more insight into the past of Solomon and his crew. And with this week's chapter, I definitely gotta say though, maybe it felt a little bit too much focused on Sheba to a certain degree. It was kind of like, yeah, we're seeing kind of a bit too much of her. And, you know, I guess in a way that's one of the main focuses because it is the Amaterasu arc, and you could totally tell that in the future, Sheba in one way or another plays a huge role in the ultimate possible demise or just the outcome of whatever happens in Amaterasu in the world with Solomon. So while it definitely felt like a quite a bit of Sheba, it had a purpose and very, very powerful moments with Sheba and Solomon. So it kind of shows the progression of Sheba, where at first, you know, she completely just hated them and everything, and now she even made friends with them to the point where she's calling the one Momo, and she's kind of learning a little bit more about these creatures. So you see her development, and I really like that over the past few chapters. You see her just go from complete disgust and like racism and prejudice and hatred to, yo, this is my friend Momo. And apparently the race is called Manticores, and Ugo, like, he was a whiz. Like, I still don't get, I'll keep saying it until we actually get to see why. I still don't get how Ugo went from this scientist guy that he's learning different languages, unheard languages, to just this brawling, battling guy that he became when he was the djinn for Aladdin. But yeah, he was a smart dude. And apparently the continent broke recently, so the thing that made that dark continent, which possibly could be the dark continent in our world as well, who knows exactly what the physics are between the mirror worlds of, you know, Amaterasu and our world. I'm guessing it could possibly be the magicians, the bad magicians did it using their magic, you know, pretty much the evil guys or whatever that want to control these monsters or whatever. So it's a possibility that it was either them or just something along the lines of that. And is it just me or those dark magicians, wow, dark magicians, I'm saying Yu-Gi-Oh, but those magicians, they kind of all remind me of a twisted Mogami. Like, Mogami was twisted, you know, he had prejudice or whatever, but Mogami had a reason to be like that, and these are just kind of, well, 1,000 years ago, these monsters were evil, even though they're good now, fuck them, we're gonna control them. So they kind of remind me of, like, warped versions of Mogami to a certain degree. I'm not gonna lie, chapters like this is really starting to make me, like, confused as to who the hell could possibly be Gyokuen. When I first started off, I was thinking, okay, in the 215, I believe it was, the chapter where you see the girl with the long ponytails, but you don't see her face, I thought that was Gyokuen. Then as the story kind of progressed with Sheba's hatred, I thought, okay, maybe Sheba ultimately becomes Gyokuen. Now I'm possibly thinking that that girl with the ponytails, which I'm assuming is Arba in the future, I'm thinking Arba could possibly be Gyokuen. The only thing that she's missing is the thing right here, the little birthmark, but she has the two ponytails, and it could possibly be maybe, you know, some sort of hatred or something. We still don't really know what's going to lead to that, but I'm just really confused at this point because it's just like, it could go so many different ways. As of right now, none of them really look too much like Gyokuen. They don't really have the birthmark, and they don't resemble in any way as far as like the hatred goes to Gyokuen. I could say that Sheba's old personality is somewhat similar to Gyokuen's personality with the whole hatred or whatnot, but we don't even really know exactly what's Gyokuen's ultimate mission, aside from, of course, reviving Father and having the Black Djinn. But as far as, like, what is it, just divine rules? She just wants to rule over the world completely, have magicians on top of humans. We don't know where her stance are necessarily regarding the prejudice between magicians and the Goi, and just overall. I'm guessing it's just that they want to conquer, and she feels maybe that she should be the king of the world. Definitely a pivotal point in Sheba's character development is finding out that Momo's dad died due to pretty much her magic. And at first it was like really a convoluted thing where she's kind of like, she don't know which way to go, and it felt very realistic. I like that because it was kind of like she didn't immediately change following that. She still was kind of trying to blame, well, there were other magicians too, it's not just my fault. And as the chapter slowly progresses and she talks to Solomon, and I like how Solomon, he's very stern. He isn't just gonna immediately, yeah, man, you're a good dude. Like, he's there questioning her, trying to figure her out, see if she truly changed. And it's not until she finally says, you know, I just feel terrible about all these things I did, that he's like, you know what? I kind of like you. The character development for Sheba was definitely good. Again, it focused a bit too much, I feel as though, on like the Momo stuff and like, you know, Momo's parents or whatever, but it had a purpose and it had a reason, and that was to ultimately push Sheba to the point where she was at right now in this chapter. Because that moment by far just made the actual chapter, and it just brought everything that this chapter was doing and this arc has been doing thus far with Sheba's character development, from hatred to just loving these people, when she sees that they're mind warped and everything, and she's just thinking to herself like, these people should have killed me, and she tells Solomon that, and it really was just an impactful moment where she tells him that, and then we find out that Solomon, along with the rest of his people at one point, were pretty much along the lines of what Sheba were doing. They were pretty much controlling and lending power to the tower as well, and right then and there, it kind of solidified a little bit more of the bond with Sheba and them, because now she feels like, okay, I'm not the only one that was doing these horrible things, and that adds again more to her character development. And overall, it was just like a sick fucking scene. The art in this chapter, like, people like to rag on Magi's art. I don't know why. It's like there's nothing wrong with the art, but in this chapter, like, between the drawing of Solomon, the up close and personal with, you get to see the little eye on his forehead that like they have when they're in Gyokuen, and then you also get to see the with all his people, the shot with all his people. It's like Shinobu Otaka fucking did some great art in this chapter. It's not always 100% detailed and everything, but this week's chapter definitely she went in with that art and that panel right there. That's like, I can't wait to the day, the anime, if it ever does get a third season, just to see that shit animated, because that looked beast as hell. And I'm curious, because Solomon had the eye, like the Gyokuen. Is that particularly the power that he got from the divine staff that gave him that eye? Because it didn't look like Solomon's wisdom, because Solomon's wisdom is like that star-looking thing or whatever that he had on the forehead, but in this one he had the Gyokuen-looking eye on his forehead. So I'm curious if that's something that he later on gets, the Solomon's wisdom, or is that just the flow of the Rook when he starts to master it, or something along the lines of that? What the fuck was up with spacecrafts? This is like this ancient world Almataron, and then you just got like a bunch of these giant spacecrafts. Was it like some sort of time travel that happened? Like, how the fuck are there spacecrafts in this ancient world? There's like barely any technology. They're probably using fucking candles to have for light, but then there's spacecrafts. Like, what's up with that? Because if there is some time travel in this, maybe it could explain some things. Like, maybe Almataron really isn't a mirror world. Maybe it's the past of some sort, but it was just like such a separation or something. I don't know, but like, for there to be fucking giant spacecrafts in this ancient world, I'm like, how? Is it the towers? Like, they're using the magic and making the towers into spacecrafts or something? It really makes you wonder what the fuck's going on in this world. It's kind of interesting as well to see that Solomon, what he ultimately becomes, because if him and his crew, they were all part of that, cult at one point with controlling these people and giving power to these towers, and you see him as a little boy or whatever, he goes from just being completely warped, having these fucked up ideals, to ultimately becoming a very good and benevolent ruler. Like, he just became a great person, and I think that just shows what type of character he is and truly like embodies. Like, he's stern, he's not going to immediately pat you on the back, he's going to wait and find out your resolve, and he's very stern, but at the same time he also has a good heart. So definitely a very strong and kind person. He really reminds me of like a Sinbad mixed with like Aladdin in a way. Like, you got like a younger Sinbad from like the Sinbad manga, which, by the way, I'm not caught up with that. I really need to read some more of that, but it kind of reminds me a little bit along the lines of that, but then at the same time the playfulness of Aladdin. So it's very interesting as well. Maybe Sinbad and Aladdin are the reincarnations of Solomon, because I keep on hearing the incarnation of the king. It could be that Aladdin's the son, maybe Sinbad's the son as well, I don't know, but like, it definitely makes you wonder, because he really has both of those qualities. He has the stern ruler aspect of Sinbad, but then he has the playfulness of Aladdin. Overall, very solid, very good chapter, very deep and emotional, mainly focused on character development for Sheba, as well as learning a little bit more about the Solomon and what's going on in his past and how him and his crew became to where they are right now. And I'm curious, because he's been called Young Master several times. Was he like at one point the prince of that clan, the clan of magicians that are probably out Thamen right now? Was he like the prince, and that's why she calls him Young Master? Like, how high up in the leadership was he in that actual clan? I'm giving this one an 8.5 out of 10. Art was amazing in this one, gave character development to Sheba, gave a little bit more of the backstory to Solomon, and it progressed things quite a bit to the point where now we're already at the point where they're going to war with the other people in the Almataron, the Thamen. Well, I'm assuming that those are the Thamen members of now, because there's just so many fodder of them now that it would make sense that a lot of these people got transferred over, or maybe like future versions of these people that they kept on going or something. Next week is about to kick off the battles, and wow, it's just been one hell of a ride, and I really just appreciate the fact that she's taking the time to develop these characters. Maybe, again, you could say a little bit, like, I personally felt like a little bit too much focus on the Momo character and Momo's past or whatever, and, kind of developing Sheba, but it's necessary, because Sheba, whether she dies or lives or becomes Gyokuen, is ultimately going to have a big impact on Solomon and the future of this Almataron world and the world we're in right now. But let me know what you guys think. Who the hell do you think at this point becomes Gyokuen? Have we even seen Gyokuen yet? Is it Arba? Is it Sheba? Is it somebody we just haven't seen yet? Also, did you get them feels when Sheba was like, I should have died, and then Solomon's like, we all should die, but not the time for us to die? Like, I personally really felt that. I was like, damn, the manga's doing some beast shit right now. And your overall thoughts of this chapter? Where the fuck are those spacecrafts coming from in ancient times? And what's with him having the full Gyokuen on his head instead of Solomon's wisdom? But that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for that Solomon and his whole crew. Like, that shit just looked epic as fuck. Like, the art in this chapter really kicked ass. For ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.